What you doing, Billy? You're recording, aren't you, you shithead?
I thought I had an opportunity. I thought that whole build-up and all of that drama and me trying to figure out what the hell was wrong with my equipment would lead Simon into some type of a rant while I sit here and finally fixed it and sipped on my liquor, but he's on to us. I think we're just going to have to hold off on it for a while, but the problem is he reminds himself every time by...
Just your skullduggery.
Well, on that note, welcome back to the Appalachian Podcast. I'm your host, Billy Riddle. With me is my sidekick. Interested to hear some of his stories for tonight's show, straight from the new Caliphate and United Kingdom, one nation under
What a
Sharia law, I reckon, these days.
It's just ridiculous.
Welcome.
Yeah.
To the Timcast IRL studios, by the
go.
way. I would be remiss if I didn't mention our sponsor, which we don't have very few. Timcast IRL, their show comes on every night, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, right there on YouTube. One of the top shows out there, political commentary. They have phenomenal guests. They all come on and they just kind of do a round table. So it's kind of like us. You know, we always have different guys. They have, you know, the core is pretty much Tim, but, you know, there's a handful of people that pop in and out all the time and come co-host with him that are pretty, you know, that do somewhere between half and three quarters of the show. They're always interchangeable. So you're always getting different perspectives, and I always have really good guests and stuff, and you know, been really good to our show. So sincerely appreciate them, and go check him out on Timcast IRL, and also Rocky Mountain Smokehouse, formerly known as Buddy's Barbecue. Can't say enough. Every time I go in there, it's always top notch, you know, and I go out of my way to text Buddy after a good meal, you know, because we get so caught up, every time we have a bad meal or a bad situation or somebody pissed in their cornflakes, they want to take it out on the next person they see. They always want to go and complain. Very, very rarely does anybody go out of their way. I mean, they'll leave a review or something, but if it's a friend or somebody, you know, shoot them a text. I shoot Buddy a text message, man, look, went in there, the drinks were good. The wings were on point. I mean, they're award-winning wings anyway, because he's got a multitude of different sauces. And of course, always their barbecue, the pulled pork, you know, you get the platter, the baked beans are nothing to shake your fist at.
He knocks it out of the park.
With everything, you know, the brisket, and he does a lot for us and helps us out. So, you know, we suggest every time you come into town, and I'm sure y'all have ate it over there quite a few times. And Buddy's is a cool spot. I was thinking about this earlier when I was getting ready to mention other two people, you know, sponsors. I was thinking about Buddy, and I was like, you know, the one thing that we can offer these people, you know, we do send business their way. I don't think there's a doubt about it. Like, I send people to their businesses quite frequently, and then we have events over there, and we have get-togethers and stuff, so we bring them as much. But on top of that, like, the more cool people we bring into this town, and the more cool events we have, and the more cool shows, and the bigger the celebrities, or the whatever your case may be, less more people are going to go into these places and get their picture taken. They're going to put that on the wall. And all of a sudden, now the Rocky Mountain Smokehouse turns into a place, you know, 15 years down the road where it's a touristy spot because these people ate here, these people hung out here, or these people played music here. You know what I mean? Like,
and we also put that connection together with KC Farms, where they were supplying, I think, brats for one of the car rallies, the classic cars they have the crews in.
Yes.
So I think at one point, Casey Farms supplied the bratwursts. So, you know, that was, again, supporting local business. And that's all the way round. So, that was another positive that came out of that.
Yeah, so if you're ever in town, if you're in Roanoke or Martinsville, actually this weekend, big race weekend, Martinsville, a lot of y'all going to be coming to town. Come a couple hours early and say, hey, on Friday or Thursday, whatever day you're coming, swing into the smokehouse. If you got campers or stuff, there's plenty of parking spaces in that parking lot. It's usually pretty empty right there because the theater's unfortunately out of business. So don't hesitate, pull in there and get you some food. And if you don't have the big camper and you're just driving your car and you stand in the hotel or meeting some people down there, stop by the Rocky Mountain Burger Company. Go in there, get you a drink, check out the Harvester, see if they got anybody coming. If you're going to be in town for a couple of days or want to skip a race, hang out here, go by the Burger Company, get a drink. Went over there last Friday with a buddy, and of course Trinity was in there. Shout out to her. Every time we have an event, she comes and serves everybody and does tremendously well. She treats all of our guests and our family and friends just and although she doesn't work her full time.
Touch.
Yeah,
really
she doesn't work her full time anymore. Brian will let her come back in there and she'll host most of our events because, hey, for one, our people tip really well, and two, you earn it. So shout out to them and the burger company for all they do. Went in there and, like I said, had the sunrise. That's my favorite. It's I think it's called the sunrise. You go in there and it's a burger with egg and bacon on it, and
low calorie.
Absolutely, put some mayonnaise on there just for your salad and sake or whatever, and then I get the Cajun fries. But their boom boom shrimp was always pretty good, and then what's that other damn? I always get about 5 wings too, because Bo down there can cook your hell out of some. Him and Buddy both. We got some good wings in Rocky Mount. You don't need Buffalo Wild Wings and that stuff. You got Buddy's. Zippy's actually has pretty good wings. Yeah. Buddy's, the Smokehouse, all these places. So go check them out if you're in town race weekend. Also, it leads me right into a great. If you want to support us, go to patreon.com/getontap, because here, this episode is going to come out on Wednesday, and Wednesday night or Thursday morning, I'm going to be giving away a couple of tickets to the race this weekend for subscribers. So get in there. We got 2 tickets for Saturday, 2 tickets for Sunday. We're going to be giving away, I don't know, should we give away as a combination or give away 2 different people? I say we give away 2 different people.
I say 2 different people. Yeah, why not?
And you'll be eligible to win 2 tickets. We've got them. We'll get them to you. Come down to the race for Saturday and Sunday. That's the Bush race or whatever the hell they call it now. And Xfinity, and then the cup races, we're going to have 2 tickets each. So if you go subscribe at patreon.com/getontap, I'll send out a message. And for anybody that's going to be interested, I want you to message me back. I'm going to throw your name in a hat, and I'll draw out a couple of winners. So good opportunity. And you're also supporting us. You're supporting some of the stuff we're doing. We're getting ready to get up some of these guys here in town. Like I said, Simon and I are going to D.C. here in February. So we're looking for some support there, because we're going to be sending people with some money back towards Rocky Mountains Way and start spending some money here and time and effort and all that kind of good stuff. So at patreon.com/getontap, you can go there and subscribe. You can also go to Venmo and Cash App, both at Get On Tap. And every little bit helps, and we're going to be keeping y'all updated a little bit more and more on that as it comes along. We've reached out to a couple other cool people, some cool shows we've got coming up here in the very near future. I'm hoping to tag. We're meeting some people in Will and Dylan over there on X, formerly Twitter. So if you haven't got on there yet, I suggest you go over there, get on there, interact with us. Like, I bought Beth Preston Photography by Beth. By the way, if you're looking for some family photos coming up, Christmas time, Christmas cards, go check out Beth.
Oh,
she's
sure. Superb.
I think we're all going to set up a session and go up there and just knock out all of our Christmas photos at a certain cabin here in the next few weeks. My wife's going to hit her up and get all of us together. So go check her out. She just got a profile over there on X. I've been telling her, share your work over there, because we got a good community that talks to us and hangs out, and in the comment section they're always sharing stuff here and there. So you get in there and pushing people in the right direction with this whole deal we got going on here with supporting local and supporting your neighbor and supporting your friends. So get over there. The interaction's great. We're talking and hanging out. Facebook, like I said. But the best thing you can do is word of mouth. Tell your friends, tell your buddies. You see somebody else, say, hey, have you listened to this show? Because I guarantee you there ain't nothing out there we ain't done a show on. You can't find it. I mean, I'm trying to think.
Pretty diverse content.
Yeah, anything you like. And you can actually have fun with shows that you might not be, formally interested in or whatever. So every bit helps. We appreciate everybody that listens to us. Tell people, and whatever app you're listening to, go leave a review and leave 5 stars, because you can say anything you want to. Say, Simon, that fish and chips is terrible. I don't care. But if you leave 5 stars, it helps us in the algorithms, pushes us up, and recommends us. So with all that being said, I am super happy to introduce our guest tonight. You are going to recognize them from a couple of shows. We've had them on this time last year. We had them on the Christmas show. From Beyond the Dark Paranormal, we got Don and Killy Johnson. Welcome back.
Hey, glad to be back.
Thanks for having us.
Very appropriately timed, Billy. Almost becoming professional about this. Almost.
Could you elaborate? Because I'm fishing for compliments, because it looks like you were throwing one out there.
A backhanded one, perhaps. But yeah, we've got Halloween coming up. I mean, how appropriate.
Well, that's what I try and save that time of the year. There's a few people since I've started this show that I've got to become friends with, and I try to keep in touch with and back and forth. And Don and Kelly is one of them. Me and Don will talk every couple of weeks or something, going up and down the road shooting the shit. And of course, Brandon up there in Floyd's another one of them.
Yep.
So some of these people I like. The shows are a lot of fun. It really gets you to thinking and talking, and it's a good opportunity to come hang out again because, being the county away in different directions. So I enjoy having them on this time of the year every year if that's how it goes. Plus, people are interested in this stuff this time of year, and they've had a year of stories they can come tell us. We've got a year of content we've been thinking about, some stories from you because you weren't here the last time. I missed you hearing some UK stuff, and I got some other questions I want to ask. So before we dive into all that kind of stuff, though, how in the hell have y'all been?
Oh, it just gives us another reason to come to Rocky Mount. So we love coming over and hanging out. It's just our kind of town,
We love it.
Bedford can be that kind of place too.
It could be.
And I really hope it does. I hope this extends out in that direction. I was talking to somebody the other day about it, and everybody was saying a few years ago the plan. Well, Rocky Mount needs to be a lot like Floyd, and Rocky Mount could be a lot like Floyd. And this, and that's how I was sitting there thinking. I said, "That's Floyd." You know what I mean? Rocky Mount can be like Rocky Mount. Rocky Mount can be like Abingdon. You know what I mean? Rocky Mount. We have the ability here because we have access. Floyd is fine, but it doesn't have a lot of access. You have to be dedicated to want to go up there and hang out, unless you live up on the mountain really close,
right?
And can get there. For us, it's doable here. Like 50 minutes is about as far as you want to go for an evening out, unless it's a big event like you're going to Greensboro or something. But Floyd, it's nice, but I mean,
it's hopping as well. I mean, I was there. What day did we do it? It was the weekend. I was there Saturday. It was hopping.
What town governments ought to be doing is every single weekend trying to find a reason to fill up that downtown. You got that farmer's market right there. How about this weekend? Invite a Comic-Con kind of deal where people come in and they trade their comic books or something like that. Have a band at the Harvester that's kind of related to something like that. And now you got people down there spending money, eating, going to the restaurants and stuff like that. You may allow one food truck to sit there, and that way, because if you get some comic thing like that, you might have 1,000 people. There's enough for a food truck and some of them to spill out over there to the Burger Company and Anastasia's and things of that nature. And, find ways to get downtown areas.
Yeah. I mean, that 150th was a great event.
I agree.
That went really, really well. And I hope they're encouraged to continue that sort of thing. And I'm sure they'll, of course they will.
Find a different reason. I tell you what, because 151st birthday sounds kind of boring. Maybe not. Just call it the annual Rocky Mount Festival, and every year you have a different theme. Maybe next year make the theme the cruise-in, since so many people like that stuff. Have a couple of bands that the cruise-in people like. Have some places like this. I would put a beer truck and a beer garden on the north side up there because you need something like that, and you would bring in so many more people because Brian and them, they were just tapped out. Anastasia, there was lines out behind them.
Oh yeah, there's enough there for that sort of competition. I always get slightly concerned with some of the horror stories from
But hopefully
trucks.
This time next year when the festival comes back around, there will be a restaurant and a tap room right there at the Morris Hotel as well for people to file into. So,
That'll be nice.
We've got Bedford the same way. We've got so many just encourage people to show up. Use your farmers market every weekend if you got to for a different. I know they do it for the I guess for the Fridays or whatever, whatever they call it. But, even during the wintertime, find different things, get people excited, get people out spending money. It's something we can all accomplish. Rocky Mount has just like Bedford, just like Floyd, just like Abingdon, just like Marion. Like there's this little charm to these, central, southwest Virginia towns. There's a lot of grit from the people that have built these towns and the ones that stick around. And there's a lot of something to be said about that. So, and for what y'all do, of course, there's a lot of history. There's a lot of paranormal activity in some of these places. There's a lot of Civil War stuff in this area.
Up by, Deacon Sled and Jonathan Barrett's place. There's that huge old plantation house up there that apparently hid Confederate soldiers or a certain officer, I think, up there in the basement. There's plenty of history around here for sure.
And we can sell that. And I think we're doing a good job of that. And that's why, to round about our whole thing about good time, and that's why I like bringing y'all back on. Like, I want people to hit y'all up too with all this history, with all this lore around here, and say, hey, come over here and hang out, because You know, and I don't know if y'all's policy has changed since the last time, but you know, y'all always would say, you know, we don't charge anybody to do this kind of thing.
Nope, sure
Still
don't.
You know, we're not out here suckling money, and the first thing y'all want to do is you always want to go disprove somebody first. You don't want to go waste your time if it's some apparition that they think it is, and it's just them vaping through their security camera or something. You know what I mean?
Right,
Like,
right.
Yep.
So that's why I want people to get sent to y'all. I want people to check y'all out on your Facebook pages and stuff and hit y'all up to come do it, because you know, if you're not going to charge anything, who knows? Sometimes people might tip y'all in other ways. They might say, "Well, hell, here's $100. Go have dinner on us," or you know, here's a jar of moonshine. You know, enjoy it. Or you might meet somebody cool that you become friends with, and they might have you
never know what doors you can open.
Absolutely.
Right?
That's exactly right. I mean,
or you don't know what doors will open while you're in there.
That's exactly. No, I want to actually. I mean, we've heard this, and I know you've explained it on probably the last 2 shows that you've been on. I'm sure you've explained it. But I think it's worth explaining again how you approach your investigation. So I'd love to hear some of your methodology.
So when we get a call to come in and do an investigation, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to talk to that person. And I want to see them eyeball to eyeball, because that's how I can tell if, you know, they truly feel like they've got something going on, or if they just want to say, hey, we had some paranormal investigators come in our house. So that's first. Lots of questions, you know, do you take medications? Do you sleepwalk? Do you have nightmares? Things like that, because...
Do you levitate?
That's right. That's right. And then after we establish that, yes, it is, you know, something, there's something going on. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to do an investigation into the land. We want to see the historical records of that area. You know, is it that there were battles there? You know, was that a building that has been repurposed over the years for different things?
What's the legend?
Exactly.
Give me the legend, and then we can build on that, or actually tear it apart.
That's right. It gives us names and things like that to go into an investigation with.
And then you go into, you know, who lived there. Then you start looking at death records. How did they die? Then you start looking at whether it was a murder, suicide, natural causes. Then you can start building a case of questions you can walk in with and start actually trying to pick the scab, you know, to see if something will cue a reaction.
So what's the equipment that you would typically use? You've now gone to that stage. What's the next step where you're looking to have this encounter?
Well, we have,
because obviously, I'm not being cynical about this at all, but everything has to have proof, particularly when you're dealing with this subject matter.
Exactly.
Right. You know, and that's the tricky part.
It is, and the more proof you can get, the better.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so a lot of our equipment is basically based off of EMF, electromagnetic field. I'll get it out in a minute. Electromagnetic field.
It's Monday.
It's Monday, and I've had one. But basically static electricity. So naturally, all of our equipment is super sensitive to that. And I guess in layman's terms, it's just reacting to whatever energy field gets around it. The basic first thing we would do would go in, would do what's called a baseline sweep. We would walk in with the EMF meter. We would go to room, record the EMF. That way we know if there's spikes. You know, it could show that there's some old wiring in the house, like the old cloth style wiring. It puts off a high concentration of EMF. Then you might get a big spike. Well, what's behind this? Oh, look, it's a control panel, you know, fuse box. So it's, you know, you go first, you just go through and make kind of like a blueprint of the house of what the EMF is where. Then once we go and start an investigation, we will know, well, if we go in this room right here, this is where they've been having some activity. We know the EMF in here is very low. If we didn't get hardly any. So if something lights that equipment up, there's a reason why.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, what other? So these are recordable. I'm assuming these are recordable.
Yeah, we have some pieces of equipment that do record. They got SD cards, and we can just let them stand alone and do what they want to do. We do have a bunch of GoPro cameras that we can set up on the equipment to watch it. So I like two pieces of proof of evidence.
Yeah.
So if one piece of equipment goes off, that could be a fluke.
Could be someone just throwing a switch somewhere.
It could be, but if you have two pieces of equipment doing the exact same thing, and the electricity's cut off in the house, and there's nothing going on, then you got something to start rolling that snowball with.
I need to play you because it's probably still on my phone somewhere. Do you still have it, the audio file from where you can clearly hear him say, "Come to the attic" or something?
Yeah, the one that made your mullet stand up.
yeah, that's the one. You played that, I think, on the Christmas show.
Oh, did I? Okay, I'm telling you that still to this day, it's just, ooh.
I actually think Scott was scared to walk outside after that.
I think he was. I think you scared him straight. I don't think I've seen him here in the studio since then. Honestly, it's been about a year.
Now, we did do an investigation on a private residence Friday night to where I asked a question, and just clear as day, you just hear no come through the recording, just clear as day.
Wow.
And not to mention, we were downstairs. We had thumps right over our head, and there was nobody in the house. It was just us and the homeowner was in the basement, and whatever it was, when it hit the floor, I could feel the vibration like in my hair, in my mohawk. And I was like, okay, well, now the party's just getting ready to start.
Where does it go from there? I mean, you've got proof, so you've got something, all right?
It's basically a game of hide and seek. Sometimes you'll have good response right off the bat, and then it'll just go quiet. And then sometimes you can go in and it's just nonstop.
What do you put that down to? How do you explain that? I mean, or do you?
I don't really know how you can explain it.
It's a toughie.
Yeah.
It's just based on how those energies are feeling at that time. Are they going to do something to let us know that they're there? Are they going to communicate somehow? Or is it just going to be stone still? And
I mean, do you view it as how am I going to go about this? Is it like an electrical impulse, or do you think it's a soul from on another plane? Or, I mean,
so everybody has their own theory about how it all happens. What I think is that there is this ethereal plane, if you will, that kind of coincides with ours. And I think that there are times when someone dies that they have unfinished business. They're not ready to go yet. And so instead of going anywhere else, they just stay right there. Sometimes they die so suddenly, they don't realize they're dead. They're going through the motions just like they're still here because they don't know any better. And we've talked about it from time to time. I mean, I think that there are times when those planes, our plane and this other plane, kind of cross. And as Don said one night, it's kind of like they can see us, they can see our mouths moving, they just can't hear like what we're saying, and they're kind of like, what are these people doing here? Who are they?
I mean, some parapsychologists have said that some spirits can be on a different plane to where we're just mute. We could possibly see them, but they can't really understand us. Now, who come up with that theory? I don't know. I can't wait till the day we get to try it out, but
yeah, how would you prove that?
Well, I'll tell you, there was an article that I was reading in some of my research, and I don't remember where it came from, what book it came out of, but there was actually an experiment done many, many moons ago, probably like back in the 1800s. Someone was actively dying, and they weighed that person. Mm-hmm. And at the time that person actually passed on, they became so many like ounces lighter or something like that. And that was kind of like the soul leaving the body at that point.
I've heard about that experiment.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard about that.
And the best thing I've ever heard is that even Albert Einstein believed in spirits. Because as we sit here right now, we're emitting ohms.
Yeah.
And his thing was, well, if you are electrical in life, you're also electrical in death. So it made sense to him that this was his whole theory about it, why he believed in spirits.
Now, something weird just happened there, because not a few seconds ago I was thinking, I wonder what Einstein would think of this.
Yeah.
Something even weirder I was getting ready to say as well. Earlier today, I was thinking about Einstein because I was going to bring it up on tonight's show and say I kind of look at myself as I'm kind of an Einstein. Like, the simplest things piss me off to no degree. Like, they say Einstein couldn't tie his own shoes, and that these all could be lies or whatever, but he was that kind of type, couldn't tie his shoes or couldn't do simple math, because it's kind of like Bill Gates has never seen a quarter. It's one of those, and I was thinking about it, I was like, I'm kind of like an Einstein, like the simplest things, like putting together like effing IKEA furniture or reading simple instructions to make a meal perplex the hell out of me. But when it comes to social concepts and like constructs and people and reading, like, I'm just.
But that was just
I just compared myself to Einstein here, Simon, and you gave me no pushback, whatever. I take that as a massively big compliment. Thank you so much. And Don, you didn't either. You didn't give me any push. Your silence tells me you look at me as an Einstein figure, and I appreciate that.
And I'll just say you're welcome.
Thank you.
Is that some form of approval? But that was a bizarre thing that happened there. Was I was thinking, I bet Einstein would know how to answer some of this.
Yeah, he was a true
believer. I was thinking about him earlier too. I mean,
it's just really weird, isn't it?
Yeah, he was a true believer in the paranormal. I mean, he just had his own theory about it. He said, we're energy on Earth. When we die, we stay on Earth as energy.
And I'll go back a little bit further than even Einstein. This is a conversation I love to have with different folks when they're talking about the Bible. Oh, we don't believe in spirits. How do you believe in God? How do you believe that, it talks about in the Bible that he would cast demons out. You can't tell me there's not demons on Earth.
Uh-huh.
He dealt with them. He's the Holy Ghost.
Yeah.
It's all biblical.
Yeah, that's and I thought about that earlier today, because there's a certain pushback out there, particularly with the Halloween event, that they have issues with it, and a lot of people, particularly religious folks, don't approve of anything connected with Halloween, which I kind of find it's a little bit tongue in cheek for me, because so many of the pagan holidays
exactly
were actually hijacked by Christianity. Yeah, there's a big conflict there when I run into that argument. There's something to it. Devil worship, but is that Halloween?
No.
That's what I thought. So,
and it's funny because we still have, when we start talking about what we do, you still have that group of people that will just go, oh,
you're one of those.
You're one of those people. And no, we don't play with Ouija boards. We don't summon the devil. We don't,
In fact, we discourage those things.
Yes.
Yeah, I discourage that very much so.
Yes.
In my opinion, for all the right reasons.
Right.
But I take some people get very offended about the Halloween festival.
When I was a kid, that was the great thing. My mom and dad, they didn't have a problem with it. I had an imagination bigger than I was when I was a kid. Still do, I think, to this day. You better drink that. But, I was encouraged to dress up however I wanted to, have Halloween parties, do all the things, because it wasn't coming at an evil tone or coming, it wasn't from a bad place. It was all fun.
Yeah. I'm not saying it's not demonic.
Sure.
Let's take it as a little bit of fun.
Yes.
And then, of course, 13 years of marriage, I realized I married Tim Burton because, she starts decorating the house July the 5th. So
that's socially acceptable.
And we got a Halloween tree. So,
right.
Yes.
Yeah, that's an interesting subject matter all to itself, I feel. And a little bit cynical, I'm just being showed a picture of the Halloween tree. Magnificent. Yeah, you can't really flat back that argument either. You've just got to say, well, if you're offended by it and those are your beliefs, absolutely.
Sure.
Absolutely.
Everybody can have their own opinion.
Yep,
That's fine.
absolutely.
That's what this country's about.
We've had skeptics show up at some of our events. We've done some public investigations at one of the plantation houses in Bedford. And the first thing they do, they come in, well, I'm a skeptic. Oh, great. We love y'all.
Great.
Gives
me an opportunity.
Because, this is what we're just going to show you. We're not going to fill your head with belief. You got to take whatever evidence you see and come to your own conclusion.
That's it. Until you have your own experience, there's nothing anybody can say to make you believe or disbelieve. You have to have your own experience.
Yeah. And I think approaching the subject matter maybe as a skeptic actually can be quite healthy.
Yes.
Yes, it is.
Because, there's certain things that are just irrefutable. So how do you explain that? And then you're starting to crack that bias. I'd sooner try and not necessarily convert. Convert's the wrong word. That sounds very biblical in itself.
Right.
But, converting the cynic is probably a great achievement.
Yes.
Yeah, we had a skeptic show up at, like I said, one of our events, and after it was done, I was standing down at the table where packing up our equipment, and he just walks up in just pure Ricky Bobby fashion. He's got his hands up near his chest, just like, what? And I'm like, I'm not going to tell you how to think. You need to
form your own conclusion.
Because that's not what we do.
No.
Right. And the more facts and evidence that you can produce that's legitimate, that can't be tampered with, that can't be manipulated, that's your road. You know all about that.
Exactly.
Well, if it wasn't for the fact that we had seen, witnessed, or heard the things that we have witnessed, heard, and seen, we still wouldn't be doing this 10 years later.
You
Exactly.
might not. I might, but you might not. That's the difference between die hard and I'm in it for, I'm just saying.
Just saying. Uh-oh. Awkward pause.
Yeah. Y'all see what I got to put up with?
I can feel it deep down in my plums.
No, but
Because I can feel it from my wife right now somewhere. She's probably driving down the road with her fingers clenched to the steering wheel, thinking about he's up there having fun recording. Baby, look, I'm working hard, and this is a job, and it's a job that I don't really get paid a lot for. So I hope she can appreciate that.
I mean, just watching you try to get the audio fixed, she ought to at least appreciate that.
I mean, for the love of God, I'm stressing here.
That was a struggle. I saw the struggle.
I guess the question I want to ask to lead it in this direction is, Simon, do you believe in ghosts?
Yes, I do.
Why?
I've had a number of experiences that you can dismiss them singularly, but when you start putting them all together, it's like, there's definitely something here.
Is it from the UK?
No, this was actually down in Turks and Caicos.
Okay.
Wow.
I woke
You
up.
think the energy in the UK would be just...
Oh, I know. It's
There's stuff in the UK. I know I was in the it was the basement of what's Henry VIII's palace in Hampton Court, and I was down there, and I definitely had a very weird feeling down there, and I've been through.
So how old would that building be?
Oh,
Henry VIII goes back to what?
Yeah, he was in the mid 1500s, which was pretty cool.
Yeah.
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 I was put in some stocks in that basement. It was a private 21st birthday of a former girlfriend, and they put me in the stocks. Very uncomfortable feeling.
What are the stocks?
Well, you're clamped in with your head and
Oh, okay.
arms
Oh, the
through.
stockades.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah, and they can throw cabbage and
Tomatoes.
rather
Tomatoes.
ripe tomatoes at you, and it was very uncomfortable. But yeah, I mean, there's all those. I mean, there's some. I mean, the history in the UK is ridiculous. So there's plenty of old buildings. My local church was had remains of Roman bricks in it. So that was at least, they put it back to, I think, 900 and something.
Wow.
And they'd scavenged some of the brickwork from a local Roman villa that was just down the hill. I mean, it was bizarre.
Yeah, see, that's just all collective energy. It just soaks into to the surroundings, and that's what then can bring on residual hauntings, which is a link to the land. But yeah, I mean, anytime you get something that old, I mean, we
used to. I mean, the big kick that we used to do, we used to go to a couple of local old country pubs, get good and boozed up, and then terrify each other around this very old churchyard in the deepest parts of Surrey that's dated back to Saxon times or something. And we'd scare the crap out of each other, staggering around tombstones. And I mean, talk about just trying to bring it on. Like, what was I thinking?
I don't know if you would consider it ghost energy, but spiritual energy, though, I think for me would probably be, the walking in the house that Father Abraham from the Bible was born in. So one of the coolest things from Iraq is for many nights, and I'm talking probably, I was over there a year, I'd say probably 3 months of that year spent in different time periods added up in Nasiriyah, which was this air base. I can't remember the name of the air base right off the top of my head. God, I'm getting old. I was at that place.
There we go.
Anyway, we stayed there, and every single night we would go to sleep, and until September. Now, mind you, we got there in April and ran missions down to this place from about May until October, and I think it was until September they finally built us a tent, like a giant tent we could all go in there and sleep in at night. Otherwise, we slept on top of our trucks in the sand, whatever. But off in the distance, every single night, this ancient ziggurat was lit up in the sky. You could see constellations that you can't see over here. And that ziggurat, I mean, it looks like kind of like a pyramid with the steps going up, whatever. It goes, dates back however many thousands. But,
wow.
One day we worked it out to where we had somebody an Iraqi that knew a ton about the ziggurat in the area. And he also spoke English. And he probably got a tip from us that day that was probably a year's salary for an Iraqi, honest to goodness. But he took us in there and he gave us the history, talked about it. There was an ancient tombstone where ancient Samaritan kings were buried that we walked down in.
Oh, wow.
So you go down in there and you just, you get chills, and you come back up there and then you walk through the house. And that's the picture right there, if you can see it.
I see it.
With my military. That's it. That's Father. I mean, look at the structure. It is still how sound that is here. Let me grab it real quick for you, just so y'all can get a context. But I mean, that is still to whenever. Father Abraham was the father of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. That's pretty much the beginning of time for our civilization. I mean, to what we know it is today. And
they were pulling out all those Sumerian
you
texts.
want to talk about the energy in that place. You're thinking this is where it all started. And then also, you cross the Tigris and Euphrates multiple times, which is, of course, 2 of the 4 in the Garden of Eden. And also, we're in the ancient city of Babylon. That's one of the first places we went to when we were over there. I mean, just all the biblical energy over there, which I'm sure it's a whole lot different than the, there's different spiritual energies over there.
Sure.
But over here, Turks and Caicos. So I want to find out. I want to get back to that.
Yeah, I'll come back to it.
I want to get back to that.
It was pretty simple, but I saw it was a different light in Jerusalem, and it's a very similar light that I also saw in Rome. It was fascinating. It's something that I can't really put my finger on it, but it was a different light. Whether that was an energy, I don't know, but it was definitely noticeable. So, yeah, been there, done that. But the Turks and Caicos thing, I was asleep one night with no intoxication of any kind from any substance or beer or liquor or anything. And I woke up and there was an image standing next to my bed. And it frightened the shit out of me. And I went, and it was bloody hell. I mean, it was that real. And I went to kick it. Because I thought, hang about this, there could be nefarious motives here. I went to kick it, went straight through whatever it was and ended up nearly breaking my foot on the wall. You know, but it was the weirdest thing. And as far as it frightened me, so I was wide bloody awake. But having come from a fairly deep sleep, that's what I encountered. I thought, what was that?
So did it disappear whenever you kicked through
when
it?
I went to hoof it just vanished. Weird as shit.
See, you've seen what we would love to see. That's like the creme de la creme of our whole existence in this whole thing.
It was weird. It was a dark. I mean, all right, the lights were off, but the moon was up.
Creme de la creme.
Yes.
Oh, creme de la creme. Oh, yes.
I'd have went for Holy Grail.
There you go. Something like that. But yes, it was a darker figure. I would say it was a male. That's about it, really. But it was definitely a dark. But yeah, my foot bloody hurt after I went to give it one.
As you said, you went to hoof it.
I went to hoof it big time. Oh, yeah. I mean, it scared the crap out of me. So
that was a little souvenir.
I'm not even going to go there.
They at least could have left you a beer, a cigar, or something, but instead of a broken foot.
Yeah, it was. And you know, I went back to sleep, woke up in the morning, and remembered it.
Did you think that maybe it was a dream, like the next morning when you woke back up?
No, it was. I knew I'd woken up with a start. There's no way that was a dream. I had experienced it, no question.
And your foot was hurting, so.
And yeah, just like Christ, what did I do?
Before I leave, I'll actually show you a picture from inside of our house of an image caught inside of my house. It was the weirdest thing, and I'll give you the backstory on it after I show you. But it's got to be totally dark in here because I took it in complete darkness. The only thing really putting any light in the room was it was probably about 7:30, 8 o'clock in the afternoon in the summer. Mm-hmm. And the sun hits the back of the house, not the front of the house. So as soon as I show you the picture, you'll pick it out.
Right.
But it definitely is something, a humanoid figure in our house. And she'd already sent me, what was it, like 2 weeks earlier? I was working in Martinsville, and
I was sitting on the couch, and I had already told him before. I'm like, "There's something here." He's like, "There's nothing here." So I'm sitting there.
You cynic.
He is. It's like every horror movie that you've ever seen, where the guy is like, "Oh, it's fine," you know, and the wife is like,
"I pick those apart real quick."
But yeah, I'm sitting there, and our bedroom was right in front of the couch, and I was watching TV, but I kept out of the corner of my eye seeing something like peek around the door at me. And I'm like, so I sat there for a second. I got my camera on my phone ready. And when I saw it again, I snapped a picture, and I saw that I got it. And I texted him and I said, "There's something here." And he's like, "Yeah, the cat, you and the cat."
So here I am.
Cynic.
Yes, I'm
unbelievable.
Cynical bastard.
Yes,
But no, here I am. I'm standing over at Martinsville. We got 40 stock cars flying around the track during practice. I leave to go into the media center, which I can't get no trouble now for saying that. And I looked at the picture and I'm like, "The hell is this?" So I sent her back. I said, "You're right. That's
Finally.
Like I needed confirmation from him.
Finally. I'm stirring the pot of hatred and discontent right now.
That's right.
If you haven't figured out, I'm stirring the pot.
Yes,
okay?
that's okay. He knows.
She stirs a pot with a canoe paddle. Trust me.
Every day. Yeah. Every day.
But when I turn around and when we first got married, she would go stay with her mom a couple times a week. Just that whole separation anxiety thing, I called it. Not from her.
Because at the wedding, my mother told me that I had abandoned her.
Yeah.
I had abandoned her.
And I'd stole her daughter away from her.
Oh, dear. That's a bit of a guilt trip there.
Well, she was also several sheets to the wind at that point that she told me.
Yeah, we had moonshine at the reception. So
sensible fellow.
Yeah. But I just had to snap this picture, and I just kept blowing it up, looking at it, and I'm like, wait a second. So I'll dumb it down real quick. It's my mother.
Wow.
As soon as I saw the picture, I sent it to her, And she instantly, she said, I told you there's something in that house. And I said, yeah, it's my mom. I can tell by the way it's standing. It's my mother. So before I had sent her the picture, I was sitting in a chair trying to process cold beer in my hand, just got off a mower. And I said, Mom, if that's you, I just got a picture of, I just want you to know I'm glad you stopped in and seen me. I miss you terribly. And I still love you. But if you ever want to give me any signs that you're here, let me know. Well, the touch lamp beside our bed has that little 3-way bulb in it. It went blink, 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 off. I got up, went to the refrigerator, put the beer back in the refrigerator, got my moonshine, went sit on the back porch, and I got numb. And I couldn't process it. And after that, I told Kelly, I said, let's just hammer this thing. Let's go full bore. Let's give ourselves a name.
Well, there was more to it than that, but at some point he came around to that, yeah.
The cynic was converted.
The cynic was converted.
Yes. Oh, indeed. Oh, I love it. And that's exactly what we were talking about.
That's exactly what we're talking about.
Interesting.
See, I've never had any, I've had some crazy things. 10, 12 years ago, I was dating a girl, and I was at her house, and I heard something in the kitchen. It wasn't a very big house, and something in the kitchen crashed. I mean, it was loud. And I go in there to look, thinking that some dumb cat had knocked something over, and there was nothing. Nothing in the floor, nothing anywhere. And I've been in another house I stayed at. You could hear stuff going on in there from time to time, and I would just say, knock it off, Didn't know what it was. But I've never had anything that just... I looked at and was like, holy hell, this. But I know, the two stories that do convince me is one, my grandpa and my brother both saw my uncle not long after he had passed. This is in the late 80s. And I know this to be true because my grandpa doesn't lie. And he was in his, 50s at the time. My brother was only 4, I think, at the time, and they both saw it. They both remember it, just an apparition of him sitting on top of a building after, that he had built not long after. And then another one was my grandma had told me this story about my great-grandpa. This is back in the 1930s, 40s, whenever it was, and on our land down there over, in that direction where my family still lives at, my great-grandpa was walking down the road, and there was this blue orb. And that's all it really was, just a blue orb. 100 feet off in the woods, walking parallel with him. Not walking, just floating parallel with him, Like my grandma said, he told her that, he'd walk, and then the orb would go, and he would stop, and the orb would stop, and it followed him all the way down the road. And, granted, that by itself is one thing. But my friend Craig, good friend of mine, one of the best men in my wedding, because everybody in my wedding was my best man. I didn't pick one, love him to death. He was sitting around one day telling a story about the same damn orb he saw. Now, Greg grew up no more than about 1.5 miles away from where my family farm is, and he saw the same blue orb. I'd never told him the story about my grandma. I told him. He explained it.
That's confirmation right there.
Same that he had seen one night, and it did the same thing. It followed him and stopped, followed him. And you're talking stories that are 60, 70 years apart.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, me personally, I've never come across anything that I was just like, holy hell, I'm 100. But there are people, but I've had crazy things happen here and there that are unexplainable that make me question it. But when my, grandpa and brother, and then my buddy Craig, who when they all, those things tying together, it's kind of like, well.
I've just remembered something as well, funnily enough. In that same villa in Turks and Caicos, this is when Heather and I were, I think were we engaged then? I'm not sure. Anyway, I think we were. And I remember it now. It was a chess board, so it was set on the level. There was no breeze coming through, no nothing. And Heather saw this too. Chess piece just moved across the table on the chessboard. I looked at her and I went, "Did you just see that?" She goes, "Yeah." I said, "What just happened there?"
Checkmate.
It was check bloody mate. I just remembered that. That's really weird.
We did an investigation on a house in Lynchburg, and normally
what part of Lynchburg?
Huh?
What part of Lynchburg?
It was down Forest Road.
Okay.
Boonesboro
Boonesboro seems to me like it would be the most energy of any part of because it's the old part of town.
Yeah,
And
and
it's,
surprisingly enough, we've never got called to Boonesboro. I got to remember to get closer to the microphone.
I think you're fine, honestly. I think last time I think I didn't restart my computer before I recorded, and that's got me a couple of times on shows. So, Kelly, you sounded like you were in a can the last time.
Yes.
I think. But I think we got to fix this go round, for the love of God, I think.
But yeah, normally when we go into a residence, we'll ask at least one, member of the family be there with us, because we just don't like to roam around somebody's house by ourselves. And also, it might be the person that's triggering the issue. Well, we get there, and the whole family's basically there. So we're like, okay, well, y'all go join the fun. So we're up in the bedroom in question, and they kept saying, all right, well, every night the kids go to bed, they have their iPad, but every morning when we wake up, the iPad's under the bed, dead center of the room. It's like you couldn't tape measure this thing any more perfect, dead center of the room. So we had the camera set up, had GoPro going, and we was using what we call our portal to see if we could get any voices to come through. And my phone was laying on the bed recording. And as I walked around the corner to kind of just check on the camera, make sure everything was still recording, I see our daughter catch my phone and throw it back up on the bed. And I'm like, so I go back and I said, what happened? And the gentleman in the house just lost it. Did you see the effing phone? It just flew off the bed on its own. It just came off the bed. So the phone was probably every bit this far off the bed. It went basically about 2 inches, 2 more inches, and then it just, like something just flung it off the bed, and Heather caught it. Well, in surprise, she just thought, oh shit, and throwed it back up on the bed. And then just this puzzled look of everybody was just like, what did we just witness? Mm-hmm. And of course, I'm pissed because I done walked out the room and just didn't see it from my own 2 eyes. But come to find out, we go back, the tape had stopped recording. The DVR was dead. We couldn't pull it up to about the point to where the phone was about ready to move. The DVR just stopped for no reason. So we're like, okay. So
I'm blaming Zuckerberg. He censored you.
That's right.
That's right.
Well, we did have one of our audios completely disappear and vanish after a show up here at the cabin. Now, your cabin, and that brings up, for you all who are kind of experts, I would imagine in this field, brings up a phenomenal question. Now, Simon, your cabin, it dates back to
1870s.
Dates back to 1870s, and originally it was a slave woman who raised 9 kids in that place. And it's not very, the square footage is probably less than it's upstairs. Very small, but beautiful. Now, we lost our audio, and I'm not attributing that to anything. I was more curious as if you've ever noticed anything in there, and the reason I bring this up, and for you all, is because the cabin and all its contents it was relocated, but it has been relocated
from Sydneysville in 1980.
So does that energy stay there? Does it come with the cabin? Is it in both places? How does something like that work?
Yeah, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, energy can be absorbed into objects, into homes, the walls. So it could travel. It could also be just on the land. So it could have been something that was, that's just at the land where the cabin originally was, which means that the energy would have stayed there. Even if the cabin was moved, it wouldn't have come with it.
Yeah. So could have, possibly.
Exactly.
It was a log cabin that was completely disassembled and then reassembled up at, its current location. And it's an awesome cabin. Just a log cake.
We tried to get you up to the 4th of July show this year. I don't think y'all could make it for whatever reason.
No, we couldn't, sure.
But it's a phenomenal time up there. And and it would be fun if they brought their equipment up there one time and see if you could gather anything, because that would be an interesting study.
Oh, yeah.
To see if something so old relocated, could possibly. And something I attribute that to, I've been recently watching Black Mirror, which is kind of like a modern day version of what's that old show that used to come on back in the day? That Twilight Zone. So it's kind of like a modern day Twilight, and a lot of the episodes, a lot of these shows go deep into the AI and the chips in your head and all this kind of stuff. And one of them was this guy. He was like this mastermind behind this, major app or whatever the case may be. But he also, at some point, you could upload DNA and whatnot. So he would take DNA from people in his office for different reasons, and he would upload their DNA into this computer and create another version of them. Now, this version of them was every bit as real as their actual version. And while they're in the computer, they're like, why am I here? They have the same consciousness. You know what I mean? So their energy has been uploaded and downloaded. And basically what the guy was doing was he was recreating in his own way this kind of Star Trek kind of thing, where he was the commander and all his coworkers, some of them that pissed him off, he would have them in there and he would command them, and he could do whatever he wanted to. Like that.
That's creepy as hell.
It really, you need to watch. I can't even explain.
It's just called Black Mirror.
But it makes me think that, okay, if you can upload somebody's energy and consciousness into the cloud, essentially is what this guy did, then it's very possible that that same energy, while maybe not simultaneously knowing it's in two different places, could still be in two different places. It could be there on the land that the cabin used to be on, but could also be in that cabin all the same.
Well, and that reinforces the theory of electrical energy.
Right.
So that that backs that theory up for sure. Interesting.
Yeah, and I'll just throw this out there right quick, Chris. If you're listening, we haven't forgot about you. We're going to hook you up. We're going to try to get up with you and check out that place.
Oh yeah, Chris Montgomery. Yes, absolutely. I think.
And congratulations on the new baby too. We heard about that.
Absolutely. We had him on the show a couple weeks ago, and he had to dip out pretty early because of the baby. But we love having Chris on the show when he can. I need to call him back because he called me yesterday, and
he called me today. Funnily
it's I get busy and I had to miss the call, and I get so many calls, emails, messages a day. I try and get back to him, but I love Chris to death. He's like a brother, and he. So pay attention, keep track, because I think here in the next couple months, what we're going to do, listeners, is we're going to go with Kelly and Don to Chris's place. They're going to do like a little a reading or whatever it is that they do, and we're going to come back and do a show and report back and bring Chris. And
I know you wanted to say seance there. I know you wanted to.
You're in my head. You're in my head. You're in my head.
That's why they call it paranormal.
The energy's coming. I mean, the ESP.
Got ya.
Oh my God.
That's what happens anytime we get around other people.
See, I'm just waiting for something just to fly off the wall or something to roll off the table. So
It'll hit me.
All right. So since the last time we had y'all on last year and we were talking about it, so it's been about a year. What's the coolest event that y'all went to and the most hair-raising thing that's happened in that meantime? I know y'all did something here a couple weeks ago or a month or so ago that was kind of big.
Yep, we did Paranormal Night at Avenel.
There you go. That's what you were talking about.
Avenel is a beautiful plantation home in Bedford, built 1838. Estimated time it was finished. And that's where we've caught probably one of the clearest EVPs we've ever caught.
EVP again?
And that is an electronic voice phenomenon. And it was a female voice, told us to come to the attic.
Ooh.
Oh, I'll play it for you. Let's see if...
Oh, right. Oh, dear.
But we have done, we've done several private investigations over the past year.
Yeah, and we did the old Winston Lake Museum. That was pretty neat.
Now, where's that
pretty
at?
cool.
That's right there in downtown Roanoke.
Okay.
Right there at Shenandoah.
Yeah, Shenandoah.
What kind of museum is that? I've never heard of that one.
O. Winston Link was the official photographer for Norfolk Southern Railway, and he did a lot of the... number one, I'm a big 611 fan. I've rode the train many a times. I've rode the 1218, so I've always loved O. Winston Lake's photos. And he was a marvel at catching nighttime photos of the trains, the lighting, the way he designed his lighting, his equipment. He was truly a pioneer of nighttime photography.
Now, a penny has just dropped. If you didn't witness that,
Yeah.
I did.
That was a penny dropping with Billy, and Go ahead, Billy.
Look,
You have the floor.
I've had some good ideas for ways that we can be pioneers in the podcasting world.
here
One
we
of
go.
them is, if we're going to do it, we need to think about doing it right now. We need to form a team together and do it. But I wanted to do a podcast in a parade. Like, I want to get Joel to have his flatbed. We run a cord to his generator in his cab. We put it back on the flatbed. We have our wives and children throwing candy to the people, and we actually record a podcast as we're driving down Main Street in Rocky Mount. It'll be the first ever podcast, but in a parade.
There
right?
you go. Revolutionary.
But you just gave me another
Renaissance
idea with
man.
the 611 is why not we get on a train one day and see if they got an electrical outlet somewhere and be the first one to ever record a podcast on a train. We talk about, because the parade one, I want it to be humble and awesome, but I think what we might end up doing is just roasting the crowd. You know, see people in the crowd and roast them, not be humble at all. But the 611, that would, because you talk about the views you're seeing, you talk about the history and stuff you're seeing as you're going down the road. I mean, I'm thinking of things that, yes, you're right, a penny just dropped. I think all of us getting tickets on the 611 and getting contact with them and being the first podcast on a train.
Well,
would be
it's
awesome.
funny you should say the tractor thing, because there was the tractor
Hayride or whatever.
hayride
the 20
around
miler.
20 mile hayride around Callaway, supporting the volunteer fire department in Callaway. I
This
think
past weekend.
this past weekend.
Whitey Taylor wasn't driving, was he?
Well, Amos was driving
Amos
a
was driving.
1948 John Deere.
Oh, outstanding.
It's a beast of a tractor. I saw it today. They made this hay wagon, and they did the. Now 29 tractors were in that rally.
Wow.
What?
Yeah, and it took a couple of hours. And
More than a couple.
Yeah, it was.
We were planning on seeing
yeah.
y'all at Billy Hurt, and we didn't, so.
So, and they ended up back at the firehouse, hot dogs and everything. I mean, I hope they raised a boatload of money, and power to them. That was a really, really successful event. Unfortunately, I was in Floyd. Otherwise, I would have been on the back of the trailer with Amos driving it, which, interesting. Especially in 1948. This thing is a brute. I mean, you hear every piston stroke. It's belching out black diesel exhaust. Oh, it's going uphill. You know it.
So that might not be the place to do a podcast.
Not on that particular track.
Not that
no.
one, no.
But,
But-
1940, and it's pristine. I mean, it's a collector's piece.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, some of these guys fix these things up. I mean, they belong in the Smithsonian. They look like a piece of modern art.
Yeah, I mean, this fits that bill. It really is a museum piece. Unbelievable. Well done, Amos.
Yeah, I think we need to find ways to get.
And well done, Callaway Fire
revolutionary.
Department.
Absolutely. And
Big shout out to
get
them,
out
too.
there, yeah, and get out there and support your local fire department. Not to get off base too awful much, but look, those people go out there and they give their time. Don, you can speak to this, as good as anybody can, and they'll sit there and tell you all day long. They say, well, all the support for the volunteer, and yeah, it has went down a lot, and that's not the fault of the people, because honestly, if you would stop taxing us straight to the grave, they say, oh, it's only 30%. Yeah, well, that's just income. Then when you throw in
All the
gas
other shit.
tax and sales tax and property tax and this tax and this
Meal
tax and ass
tax.
tax and meal tax and everything that goes in, you end up spending about 50%. You know what? If you wouldn't tax us so damn much and you just said, hey, do what you want to with your money, I would almost guarantee that every firehouse and every volunteer station throughout Appalachia would be fully funded, because people say, hey, I can do what I want to with my money. Well, shoot, my $80,000 is actually $80,000. Shoot, here's $1,000 to the fire department, and 50 people,
and
100
that's of
people
your
do that.
choice.
Boom.
That's your choice,
because
right?
people would want to do things like that.
Well,
But
charity always, as they say, starts at home. And I think it needs to work progressively from home out, and whether that's within the county, within the town, whatever. And when we're sending all this money overseas, billions and billions, all for the wrong reasons, it's just like, we're not your charity when it comes to that tax expenditure.
Exactly.
And that's one of my big gripes, but I'm not going to go off on a tangent on that. I could get quite irate and foul-mouthed, and I'm very capable of doing both.
you don't say.
Yes, indeed. No shit, Sherlock.
either way, yeah, support your local volunteer fire departments. Go out to the events, or, check them out on Facebook. Look, these people are going to be the ones that show up, and save half your house. They might save your life. They might save your dog. You know what I mean? Like that's how it should be. At the end of the day, we should be able to count on community to show up and volunteer. Like at the end of the day, everybody and their cousin, and we'll talk about this next week with our show. Like everybody and their cousin should be prepared in multiple ways. Like you should want to get out there, and I'm a hypocrite right now because I should get out there and do it myself. You should get out there and learn what to do in that situation. Be a volunteer. Learn life saving skills, even if it's just combat medic stuff. Applying a tourniquet. Small things like that. Like everybody, should be more involved when it comes to stuff like it. Because our volunteer, that's what it is. That is their precious time they are given to come save your sorry ass.
Well, that was one of the big things with border supervisors, and I'm not going to tangent off on this because I'll save it for next week. But their cynical approach to the Franklin County Militia, and then coming out with some statement about volunteerism fell well below where it should have been. But volunteerism is where you get your bang for your buck because people really want to do it. It's not a 9-to-5 job. You're not doing it just for the paycheck. You want to do it.
Well, and the reality
it's the right
is
and good thing to do.
The way that things are going right now in the world, we probably ought to learn how to do those things.
Oh, yeah.
Because we're going to have each other's back at some point.
We're going to have to.
Yeah, we're going to have to.
And also you got to put into perspective too, when you're talking about rural communities and stuff, you're talking about volunteer firefighters and you're talking about deputies and things of that nature. In my opinion, to some degree and to some nature, can mess with you more than being in combat. You know what I mean? When you're in combat, I was telling somebody about this earlier today. I was like, man, being in Iraq was easier than having 2 kids under the age of 4 or 5 or whatever the case may be. And that's not to dismiss how difficult war is, but it's very simple. It's you go out and live to see tomorrow. And that's pretty much it. But with kids, it's make sure I live, make sure they live, make sure this is going on, this is going on, make sure they're not crawling in the fireplace, make sure that's it, drinking Drano. All this kind of crazy stuff like people don't understand.
Drinking Drano.
Yes. So when it comes to volunteer firefighters and as people in our community who look after us and take care of us, like they're showing up to scenes with friends, with family members, with people that they care about, that they, that it's not always the best case scenario. It's not always, you know what I mean? So look past the fact that they're just volunteering to go out there for you. Look at the fact that they're doing it with the understanding that most likely they're coming up on people that they know.
Yeah. It's, I'm 35 years now, Bedford County, volunteering fire and EMS. And we used to get these young kids that would come into the rescue squad before I got out. And I'm like, look, before you do this, you better ask yourself, who's your best friend? Well, it's such and such. Do you want to see him dead? Because that's the reality. You might as well just face that you could pull up on a car wreck, find him dead, mutilated, crushed up in a car. I said, this is the stuff.
Fried in a house fire.
Yeah, you better think about this. And not to kind of get off on a sidestep, but 6 years ago, I was diagnosed complex PTSD from a lot of the stuff, including picking up one of my closest family members in a car accident. And now I kind of use what I'm doing in paranormal investigating to kind of use that as therapy. To me, it's therapeutic. I can't wait to get into a dark, just pitch black location. It's almost like it's where I feel most comfortable.
Right.
And some doctors would go, well, what's wrong with you? It's nothing.
I'm good to go.
I'm good to go. So
well, that's me with the podcast. It's therapeutic. You know what I mean? Like, and I know I was joking with my wife about this past week. I was like, 2.5 years in, and Simon and I are on the cusp of going to D.C., flying out to California, getting in front of congressmen, and all this stuff we've accomplished. And honestly, started this thing as an excuse to hang around and drink beer with my buddies, and I just found a way. You know what I mean? Like it's mind boggling. How things come about, but it is therapeutic for me because because I feel like, part of me, it's like we went to Iraq and we shouldn't have been over there in the first place. Now, I know when we were there, the good, that we did, like we didn't go out of our way to be mean to people. We weren't bad to people. In fact, it was quite opposite. We trade and bartered and did everything we could with everybody along our route. And what that did for us is ensure that we didn't have a lot of problems. Because if you're spending money through there, they're going to protect you because they want that almighty dollar, because the American dollar over there went far away. So most of the places we went to, because we had good relationships, so it's,
you got some of that, Saddam Hussein, is it dinars?
I probably got about 300,000 in dinars.
Yeah, I've got some of that stuff too kicking around.
I've got tons of it, and I've got a ton of it because I'm hoping that maybe in 300 years it'll be like Confederate money is, and my great grandkids, might be able to go, buy a gallon of gas or something with it.
It's quite a
Because inflation at that point in time will be so bad that, walking outside and breathing air will cost you $3,000 a day.
It's a pretty interesting story. A friend of ours who's a retired Navy SEAL, he was in the first Iraq War. And I was walking through, I was like, go over and clean my dad's house, and I was walking through the other day, and I had him look up, and I'm like, how have I forgot about this? He actually brought my mother back a prayer rug that was from Saddam's castle when they raided it. So there's a piece of that history still hanging on the wall in my dad's hallway.
Right.
So
yeah, I got tons of that stuff around here. I keep it. Some of it I got in safes. I got things here and there. I've actually got an outfit. I went 15 years ago or something. This is back when Amos and them lived at Striper's Land, and I went to a Halloween party one year, and I went as Saddam Hussein. I have an actual Iraqi officer's uniform I got over there, and I could fit into it back then. I don't know if I could fit into it now or not, but I should whip that back out one of these days. And
oh yes, you should.
And do that whole
go to the Board of Supervisors meeting, maybe.
There you go.
You're welcome.
Like that. Do something. And I know we got off on a tangent about volunteers and stuff. But yeah, and Don, and I was kind of alluding to that story because I don't know if you want to share it if you care to, whatever. But you shared it with me before, that story about, and that's kind of what led me into that. Is you had to show up for somebody, and that was a crazy situation, even beyond you showing up.
Yeah.
And
I never thought about that actually, and that's very mindful for a new recruit. I never thought about that angle.
I mean, I got asked one time, are you used to seeing dead bodies? And I was like, yeah. And they said, well, it's time for you to get out.
Yeah.
If it doesn't bother you or you don't have any emotion tied to it, then it's time for you to get out. But that's where I lean on my faith in God. I still believe that every day a baby being born right now, his roadmap's already laid out. Yep. It might be 5 years, 50 years, 100 years. We don't know when, but we all have a roadmap, and one day we get to the end of our road, no matter how long or how short.
Yeah, God's got a plan.
Well, this ain't kind of a serious turn, didn't it?
It did, didn't it?
Well, no. Well, I mean, it ties in together a little bit,
exactly.
but because when you talk about what people do and what they'll sacrifice for their community and what you do for your community in that aspect, and then, and it leads into what I said when I started the show about the friendships we developed, because you've divulged that information to me. You and me going down the roads, we've had conversations about this, and that really, it changed me, it moved me, it got me to think in a different direction. Cause, without jumping into it, you said that was a situation where, your relative was missing for days, essentially,
missing
right?
For 8 days, yeah.
8 days. And just, I can't imagine, the roller coaster of emotions somebody has to go through. Not only paramedics or EMTs, but, family and all that kind of stuff. And you fit the bill for both, where every horrible situation you can possibly think of is running through your head, But at the same time, as somebody who's close to that person, you can also sit there and start, for the hundreds of different crazy things you can think of. You can also, well, this isn't very likely. Well, this isn't very likely. So what could it be? You know what I mean? But I can't imagine not knowing for 8 days. If it was my family, my wife or something like that. That's torture beyond anything that
Mental
anybody
torture.
can comprehend.
Absolutely. Mental torture. The worst one you can get.
I have to ask you, this is completely off topic. Did you just hear something that, like, it wasn't any conversation that we had in this room? Through your headphones? Are your children home yet?
No, because you would hear them if they were.
I heard children outside playing.
Maybe that's what I heard. I'm like...
There are no children out there playing. There's none.
Yeah,
Are you serious?
No.
I just heard kids.
Yeah.
The closest kids are all the way down at the very end of the street. You're not going to hear them. Or they're back on this end of the house on that street, which you're not going to hear them because the only window open is right here. And plus it's dark outside. Nobody's...
So neither one of y'all heard
No,
them children.
I didn't.
I'll say at this point in time, I didn't. That doesn't mean it just didn't register.
Yeah.
You know.
It might have not registered with me, but y'all's brains are more trained to pick up on things like that.
What's the time stamp on the recording?
We're at the 1:15 mark, and it is 7:32 p.m. So in Appalachia, at this point in time of the year, it's completely dark. There's nobody out there playing and stuff.
I say, I mean, when we come back to listen to the recording,
It was about 5 minutes ago.
yeah, then just clock that as a timestamp.
Well, I know this. I mean, like Tara all the time is telling me, "Did you hear that? Or what was that? I heard a crash. It woke me up in the middle of the night." And I was like, "I didn't hear a thing. I mean, loud crashes." But this house, it's over 100 years old, and it's right here. And I mean, for the love of God, there's a crematory and a funeral home in our backyard. So, I mean, there could be wandering souls coming down through here. It could be that the fact that this house is 100 years old, we hear little creeps and crungs. And I'll be sitting downstairs at night sometime and think somebody is walking around upstairs. And I've ran upstairs real quick, and my mother-in-law and daughter are fast asleep and been asleep. You could tell for a while now because I'll peek in the door, but whatever I heard just happened. I'll run upstairs, like
Intruder
that energy,
alert.
yes, that energy, that crazy energy that we have. And we talked about this on the last show too, about all the different theories and stuff of why or how, and sometimes maybe time folds on itself. That's what you were alluding to earlier. Mm-hmm. Time folds on itself, and you're essentially seeing, like you're seeing somebody from the 1940s because you're in the same physical location, but their timeline is going while your timeline is going, and it's just
well, there's so many different photographs out there. Historical photographs that represent something that shouldn't be there.
Mm-hmm. But I'll tell you too, some of those, even though some of them are in books and things like that, you have to kind of look at them too, because I know that at the time that a lot of those, the photography was happening in that time, there could be an overlap of the film.
Yeah.
Like a shadow or silhouette or something like that.
I'm not talking about not necessarily anything that is.
Oh,
I'm talking about there's a piece of machinery that isn't appropriate for the time
mm-hmm.
for the time period. And there's all sorts of photographs out there. There's some of the Old West where someone's got a 357.
Right.
Well, I'm like, hang about that. That doesn't fit in that time period.
Photoshop.
Well, I mean, at that point in time with black and whites and what have you, who knows? The photoshopping and AI shit is out of control right now.
That's
so
true.
you can't believe anything you see, read, or
we're
hear.
constantly getting hit up with people will send us a picture and go, "Oh my God, look what I caught!" And I'm like, hate to bust your bubble, but no, not everything's paranormal.
No. You explained to me about when I think I said on the Christmas show, I mentioned something about orbs, and that may have been a light infraction with the camera, whatever it may, because digitally they do some weird things.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Because they're so fast now with these shutter speeds, and
depends on if light is reflecting off of something that maybe you're not thinking about at the time, or maybe it's catching dust at just the right angle.
Exactly. So you're not I'm not witnessing orbs,
right?
But when you take the picture, there's an orb,
right?
And it's just, well, hang about. I was there. I'd have seen that. So at that point, you've got to look at the process of the digital, the light, whatever's been picked up.
Right.
Yeah. These camera phones, that that thing don't know how to focus. It knows how to focus on your face, but anything in between me and you, a speck of dust will show up looking like an orb, and we get that all the time. Light play, like people will say, well, look, I got pictures of these. What are these 3 lights around us? Well, there's a porch light behind you with 3 bulbs in it. It's going through the lens. The outer
Is it a
glass,
reflection, a refraction, whatever it
off
may
the
be?
front lens, and that's what you're seeing. And it took us a long time to just sit down and study photography phenomenon,
Right.
to figure out, okay, this is, all right, the little red squiggles you see in people's pictures, that's the red eye. They remember the cameras used to have the little red eye reducer would come on. That's reflecting off either a mirror off the side of the room, a window. And as you barely just move this camera, not even a micron in your hand, it causes this thing to just
Do weird shit.
on the camera.
Yeah, and that's I think very important to know, because you were talking about always having 2 elements confirming that aren't just 2 camera phones.
Right.
That ain't going to cut it. So you've got to dismiss that. So it's got to be 2 different planes of whatever you're recording, whether it's some electromagnetic or whatever it may be.
Right. Yeah.
So I can the cynicism with digital photography, absolutely. Yeah, you've got to question that off the bat and almost dismiss it.
True.
Now, did we give you all the story about the time I got attached to?
No.
Would you like to tell that one?
You tell that one.
No, you tell that one. You're way better at it.
I can't ever remember the name of the area we were in.
Madison Heights.
Oh, okay.
Well, that was simple.
Yeah.
That was simple. I should have just asked. That was a private
No,
investigation.
what do you mean attached to now?
Well, I had asked a question. The house we went to, when you walked into this thing was probably the first double wides ever built on this humongous trailer park. And I mean, when you'd walk in this place, it was just like walking through a thick fog. You just felt the heaviness in this place. And we started into the investigation. We talked to the people, in the house, and kind of got the here and there's of the story of what was going on. We witnessed the cat watching something in the back bedroom. So me and another friend of ours had went in, and she was an empath. She could see, she could communicate. And I had an SLS camera in my hand where I could actually see, it would map out basically the static electricity, and it puts up a stick figure of what could be possibly a person. It's got its moments where it can map out something fraudulently because the camera don't know. But in this situation, I asked her, I said, how many people do you see in this room with us? And I'm standing behind her, and she was looking, and she just 12, and I'm counting on the SLS camera, and I'm like, oh shit, there's 12 people in this room with us.
Ooh.
So that's when we started initiating the conversation. Who are you? When did you die?
And the whole time that they're asking these questions, me and another investigator, another friend of ours, was in the adjacent room with an ovilus, which is a piece of equipment that will say words. It can answer, like that's how they can answer. And it'll put the word up on the screen so that there's no question what word they said. And as they're asking, can you give us your names? James, John, like 12 men's names came up on the ovilus.
And normally the ovilus will throw a word in every once in a while. It'll just come up with
Something random.
a random word in there. But this thing rattled off 12 men's names just like that. Continue.
No explaining that.
Well, no, I had asked, I said, so I said, who's the boss? And I got the name James. Of course, they were in there yelling stuff back to us. And she said, James. And I was like, James? I said, when did you die? And it said 8. It said something weird in between. Then it said 7. So 87. Did you die in 1987 or 1887? 18 came right across the obvious that quick. I'm like, okay. So we're off for this, we're thinking, all right, this is obviously used to be a huge plantation of farms, so this got to be a farm hand, probably the farm boss. And I made the mistake of saying, how'd you die? Do you know you're dead? And within just a second, it felt like something had my heart and was just twisting it.
He was so pale when he walked back in the room. I mean,
ashy gray,
sweating. He looked like he was having a heart attack. I mean, I was ready to just call it and drive off, to get him to the hospital. And the friend of ours that was in the room with him, who is a sensitive, she handed him, she said, here, take this. And she handed him it's a book of protection prayers that have been blessed by a demonologist. Yes. And just like that, everything stopped. His color came back, no sweating, no issues. And I'm not gonna lie, it scared the ever loving hell right out of me. And I'm sitting there going, okay, so apparently James is a bully. James was a mean man. So the more I thought about it, I was kind of hesitant about going back in that room, and I'm like, okay, I'm just going to kind of let things die down a little bit. We're going to talk to the homeowners. And on the way I back up the road, I'm like, we were talking, and I told him, I said, I'm always analyzing our cases after we leave. Like, I'm thinking about things that we've experienced while we were in there. And I told him, I said, it was not malicious at all. We asked him how he died. He was showing you he died of a heart attack. That's how he was communicating that to us.
That's a rather unpleasant way of communicating.
Oh, it was very, very unpleasant.
Yeah, that was a little bit too literal for my liking.
Honestly, I was sitting there thinking about this, and you want to talk about pennies dropping again. For our subscribers at patreon.com/getontap, like we said last week, what I'm thinking about doing is maybe cutting off the show here at a certain time and then spending an extra 30 minutes for the after show. And actually, and I'm going to do that tonight here shortly. I want to talk about demonic possession. Like, is that possible? Maybe we won't do the after show tonight.
I think the Catholic Church would say yes, it is possible because they do the exorcisms.
Do you know they do, but not as much anymore? They have specific priests that are allowed to do them.
Yes.
But only after they have been vetted. They have to show proof. There's like a whole process.
And the order has to come straight from the Vatican for them to do it. Now, what's funny, the house we was talking about in Lynchburg where my phone flew off the bed, I'd actually contacted the local Catholic church to say, hey, this is kind of a serious situation. Do you mind coming up, protection prayer with us, maybe sprinkle us with some holy water, because whatever's in this house is pretty nasty. I basically got ridiculed and told, stop prank calling, and they hung up on me twice. Said they didn't believe in that kind of stuff. And I'm like, why are you a priest?
Why does your church do it? What was that?
I heard that. I did hear that. Did you?
Yes.
I heard it.
Did anybody else?
Oh, I heard it.
It sounded like a faint low key on an organ or something, just for about a second and a half.
An instrument.
That's why I looked over at Kelly to make confirmation. Did you hear this?
I'm going to text my wife real quick and ask her, y'all here, because she could have been moving. She could have been moving something downstairs.
What was the timestamp on this one?
7:45 p.m. And this is an hour and 28 into the episode. Let me look out the window and see if my wife is here. Honestly, let's see.
We all heard it.
Could be her. Could be her, because I did hear that one. I did hear
It sounded like,
something moving across the floor, something to that nature.
The other sounds you hear is Kelly over here destroying half your room trying to get to the refrigerator.
Well, there's good beer in that refrigerator, so I don't besmirch her in the very least for wanting to get over there and actually grab Don something as well. What do you want, Don? We got some German. You want the Abita? There you go. That's the English stuff, so be wary. That's the stuff that Simon likes. So if Simon likes it, it's probably not as good as the Germans.
It's very good.
Oh my!
Oh, indeed.
Indeed. We did. Went to St. Albans one time, the sanitarium in Radford, and she got attached to. And we almost got all the way out the building before we finally got whatever. Basically, she just felt like just two claws on her shoulders, just like something was hanging on to her. And we finally got that off of her before we got out of there, and then we got the hell out of Radford.
Yeah, run, Forrest, run.
Pretty much.
Have any of y'all seen the movie Nefarious?
No, but it's...
Nobody
I don't
has.
think
Okay. Me and my wife the other night, we actually had a night, and God bless her mother for allowing us to have this. I was like, all right, she came upstairs and bathed. I was like, we just want a night we can sit down and watch a movie, and this is one that I wanted to watch. It is about a guy that's on death row, and a psychologist gets sent in there to evaluate him and decide whether he's competent to face, whether he's, lying or faking or whatever the case may be. And it's Sean Patrick Flannery, I think, who was in Boondock Saints. He was, opposite of Daryl, if you know him for whatever. Great movie. Anyway, and he plays I told you about this last
Yes,
week.
you did. Yeah.
But we actually, I don't know if we watched it since then or not. I think we did. And the dialogue is phenomenal. Yeah, we did. We watched it since last week. We talked about it last week, this week. And it's about the prisoner, about being possessed by demons. And, played it off very well. And the reason it's a good movie is because it does present a clear the demon was like, we couldn't imagine, we couldn't think up what you all have done. And basically, and without giving away the entire movie, when a psychologist comes in there, the prisoner who's supposedly, he tells the psychologist, he says, well, I'll tell you what. He said, before the end of the day, you have committed 3 murders. And tells us, and you just have to watch the entire movie. But it goes, but it really makes you think, and without giving away, I'll give away one scene of the movie where a Catholic priest comes in there, and he, and he's like, no, I don't want you to come in here, blah, 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 all this kind of stuff. And then the Catholic priest starts talking. He's like, we don't believe in that kind of stuff anymore. And then the prisoner, he's like, well, hell, Father, I like you even more now. The fact that you would, dismiss the fact that this can happen makes me appreciate what all we've done. You know what I mean? And that's the crazy part about it is you have to acknowledge that stuff is probably possible. And it's kind of like vampires. You have to open yourself up. It's not, I don't believe that a demon can possess somebody, and this is my personal thing, I don't want to hear what y'all think, but I don't believe a demon can possess a good soul, a good spirit. It's one of these things, and as the movie, once you watch it, you understand what I'm saying. As the movie kind of decides, it's something that they're very precise and they're very patient, and it happens over time. It might start out with a Ouija board when you're in your teens, and then it might get to this level, and every little thing is calculated and personified, and everything adds up to eventually, well, that demon's completely overtaken you, and they're making decisions for you that you can't even.
And most times, what we've talked about, just kind of throwing conversation back and forth, was it seems like to us a demon goes after the more pure and innocent, like the children, because they don't have the ability or the rational thought to even think about how to stop it. They just think it's something normal. Luckily, we haven't run into anything like that, and hope to God we never do. But,
well, demons, so they were never human to begin with.
And that's the thing that the movie reiterates, and the prisoner continues to, in the movie, relates to Jesus as the carpenter. He's like, well, the carpenter came along, we had this great thing, and all of a sudden he gave you this opportunity,
right,
and gave you the free will, and talks about that kind of stuff.
Exactly. And with children, even with adults, a lot of times, if there is an entity like that, it's not going to present itself as the actual entity. It's going to present itself as an innocent child, or, something that is good, something that you would never associate with.
You wouldn't knowingly accept a demon.
Exactly.
Right, so they've got to
weasel their way in somehow.
Got to put on a good charade.
That's right.
Yeah, interesting.
Except in that part of one scene in that movie, he says, "Go ahead." He's like, "I give you permission. If you're a demon, then I give you permission to come inside me." And at some point in time, you realize why he regrets. But just watch the movie. Apparently, there is this alternative economy, the alternate economy that is popping up here. And you know, I know you, Don. Don is, you know, I talk to him a whole lot more than I do Kelly, but as a nonsense individual, you know what I mean? Like,
Oh, he's got a lot of nonsense about him. You were right.
well, I do too. But at the end of the day,
Boy, that one got left wide open.
but to some degree, is a no nonsense individual, and like, you know, with this, we want to see wholesome content. You know what I mean? Like, I don't need every single thing I watch, every single sports game I watch to be loaded down with political nonsense. Like, I just want some good wholesome content. And Nefarious is one of those movies where it's probably negated by Hollywood because it actually, at the end of the day, sends a very clear message. Like, you know, follow him. You know what I mean? Like, this is going on. You know, the same way with The Sound of Freedom, which I haven't seen yet, which is about rescuing the kids from child trafficking. Like, these conservative movies are starting to pop up. Get out there and support them. You know, support people with the same values you have. Go find your local farmer. Go find the person in your neighborhood that makes this or makes that. And cut the middleman out as much as you can. Go pay them in cash. Don't report it. You know what I mean? I mean, I'm already on this. Might as well keep talking about it now at this point in time. Don't report it. Go out there and trade and don't say a damn word about it.
Yeah,
you know?
just trade.
Make their jobs harder.
Go back to doing trading beaver pelts and stuff.
Absolutely.
You know,
I mean,
bartering.
whatever the case may be, you know, whatever the case may be. But I mean, it's just the movie. I go back to it and I go back to the demonic possession, and I'm sitting there thinking, like, there might be some that are more obvious and crazy, like in that movie when it comes to a serial killer, like, but you have to entertain the thought that even a lot of these people out here, I don't know if they're demon possessed or they're just lost or they've traded their souls, or but they march around here and they scream about the most absurd things and they cheer on the most absurd things.
Well, the evil is out there. There is no question in my mind.
I mean, there's
Evil
people
is
out there
amongst
now
us.
that say, I wish I got pregnant so I could have an abortion. Like, how do you comprehend the terror and the fear and the guilt and all this kind of stuff that goes with something like that you have to live with the rest of your life? And you, as somebody who's never had to do it, say, I wish I could do that. I mean, that is demonic. I mean,
You're not wrong.
You're not wrong. And as far as, you know, the actual demonic possessions, I mean, there's less of that than there's a lot of people that would expect, because there's a lot of people that think, you know, that everything that happens it's because of a demonic situation. But I'm going to tell you, you're exactly right. When it comes to stuff like that, it is evil. Yep. There's no other word.
It might not
for
be
it.
a quite demonic possession, but is the evil energy that these
Exactly.
demons have actually
Put
sent
that seed in there.
in other people.
Yes.
And this is what they cheer on. You know what I mean? Like, and we've seen it this past week with past couple weeks with all that's been going on over in the, you know, in Israel and the Holy Land and this stuff, like people cheering on without knowing all the facts. And we've talked about this a little bit. Like, the propaganda is going to be strong here for both sides. Just keep in mind that there are there are more innocent people on both sides than there are nefarious people that are suffering throughout this no matter what side it is. But there are people on both sides that are cheering for the absolute destruction and you know, it's just mind-boggling to watch.
Is.
I mean, they're actually suggesting that genocide, from their radical view, whichever side that radical view is what's required. That should be disturbing in itself.
Yes.
Such
You know,
bad
another
energy.
thing, it's about what gets the most ratings and the most views and the most
Yeah, don't
clicks
fall
on the
for
internet.
it.
But
Yeah.
that's part of evil too.
Yeah.
That is part of
Exactly.
the evil manifestation. You know,
Well, all you had to do was look at the MTV Awards. Was it MTV? I'm not quite sure which one it was. There was that English chap, very strange fellow, Sam, whatever his name
yes.
is. I mean,
yeah.
just a complete deviant. And that show it couldn't have been more demonic in what he was trying, the message he was trying to throw across.
Of course.
You know, to be punted out there, whichever awards ceremony show that was, I think it was MTV.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, and without any recourse. I mean, it's like everybody sit back and go, well, isn't that cute?
And I'm just like, how on earth did that pass the sniff test?
Right.
have you
you know?
ever listened?
And the guy's he's a complete wanker.
Have you ever listened And now technology these days is a whole lot better than 20, 30, 40 years ago, spinning your records around backwards. But nowadays they can actually go back with the technology. Have you heard in reverse Stairway to Heaven?
I haven't.
It will make the hair on your head. Because then some guy like broke it down really well. I saw this guy on the internet, and he's probably just some random guy, but it made kind of sense. He was like, the way the song was created and the perfection that it took to be able to reverse engineer it and hear the sounds. Because he was like, the song makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. If you go back and look at the lyrics, Stairway to Heaven, it makes no logical sense. It's not really going anywhere. When you play it in reverse, it says things like, believe in Satan or hell. I mean, it will make the hair on your neck stand.
Never heard. I'm going to have to give that a try.
I mean, honestly, and look at me. I mean, like, you look behind you, there is a Robert Plant poster. I love Led Zeppelin. I do. But there is no denying whatsoever. No, not Robert Plant. Because honestly, I think maybe Robert Plant might have been the most based one of the band. He might have been, because it was Jimmy Page who was deep in the Aleister Crowley stuff. And y'all know who Aleister Crowley is, obviously. You know who Aleister? Yeah. Big time Satanist, Church of Satan. Big Jimmy Page was huge into the amount. And in fact, I think they wrote Led Zeppelin 2 or 3 while staying at Aleister Crowley's house, who Jimmy Page purchased and bought that house from. And, crazy things happened with that band. I think like John Bonham, eventually died of alcoholism, but I think Robert Plant had a wife and a child, or at least a child died in a car accident, which is why essentially the band broke up, because he came back a little bit after that, but was so distraught. And for whatever reason, Led Zeppelin to me is the most iconic. I mean, they took rock to another level.
Yeah,
they never would come back together. Maybe Robert Plant was just like, the Aleister Crowley stuff with Jimmy Page was a little too much. I don't want that bad energy coming with me. You know what I mean? It's just crazy things happen with that, right?
Yeah. I mean, hey, that's a new theory for me, but why not?
I don't.
If he was into that demonic Satan,
but
very dangerous stuff.
So many people into that these days.
So many people are into that these days, and I know in our area, it's probably been, about 6 months or so ago, there was an advertisement where it was one of the Satanist groups that was actually sponsoring and putting on like movie night or something like that at the elementary school.
Oh yeah, that was down in Jefferson Forest.
Yeah.
One of the high schools in Bedford, they had a Satan club.
I remember reading that
everybody lost their damn mind.
Yeah. Well, they should have, because if you would have had a Christian club, everybody and their cousin would have been there
losing
their stuff.
That's exactly what we said. That's right.
Like, tit for tat.
Yes.
I mean, that's honest as you can be about that.
But I have to say, I saw that, it surprised. I told him, I said, I'm surprised. I'm really surprised. Like, that was not something that I was expecting to see an advertisement for.
I was shocked. I was just, number one, how dare you? The fact that it even got off the drawing board blows my mind.
Yes.
But this is the age we're living in now. You've got to be super wary.
It's almost to the point now to where
it's blatant.
Nothing else really surprises me. I mean, I could wake up in the morning with a mullet as majestic as Billy's stapled to our hardwood floor, and I wouldn't be surprised at anything come across the TV or anything we hear.
Yeah. It's mind blowing.
Well, I'll tell you, I have a story to tell you, and it has nothing to do with Satanists, but you were talking about demonic possession. Well, this is kind of a story about possible possession, not necessarily demonic, but definitely not in a good way. And then from there, I'm going to segue off of kind of the ghost type stuff into a different area of paranormal, just because I'm interested to see what you guys have to say about that part.
Ooh, boy.
But Dawn's like, I don't know where she's taking us.
The tables are being turned on us, Billy.
Well, so this story happened in Sherman, Texas, which is where my sister lived at the time. Her and her husband had bought an older home there and was in the process of fixing it up while they lived there. And she reached out to me on several different occasions to tell me about strange things that they had noticed in the house. Footsteps is how it started off. They would hear footsteps coming up the stairs at night while they were, getting ready for bed. Or they would hear, there was one room upstairs specifically that there was a lot of activity in. She said that, one night their daughter was in her room, but both of their daughters were there. And this was, they were fixing the room up for their son. And she said, I had been in there painting that day. And she said that night, we're in bed asleep. And the next thing I know, I hear the radio blaring. And she said, I'm like, what are the girls doing? Thinking that they're up and they're whatever. So as she's making her way down the hallway, she finds out that it's actually coming from the room that she's fixing up. And as she goes in to cut the radio off, she realizes the radio was not even plugged up.
Oh.
So, fast forward a little bit, things are progressing at this point. She said that one night she and her daughter were driving home, and she said not far from where their house was, something like came right out in the road at them. And she said it caused me to, really veer off the road pretty quick. She said, but there was nothing there. She said, but there was absolutely nothing there. Nothing had time to run one way or another because of all the lanes of traffic this way. Plus, they were looking this way as well. She said there was just nothing there. Her husband, she called me and says, he's acting really strange. She said, we're in bed one night. She said, he'll be sleeping. And she said, he will, he kind of growls in his sleep. She said, I've never heard anything like that. It's kind of a guttural kind of growl and laugh. And she said, he did that one night. And she said, the first thing I thought was, I'm going to start praying. So she said, I went to say the Lord's Prayer. She said, I couldn't remember it. She said, I had my hand on him. She said, this is something that we grew up with. There's no way you can't not know that. She said, I would take my hand off of him, and she said, I would start thinking it through, and I could come up with everything. She said, so I'd touch him again, and I'd start to pray. I couldn't remember the words. She said he would wake up speaking German. He doesn't know any other languages but English. So they're not sure. Come to find out, after an investigation was done there, was a German doctor that lived there at one time. So I don't know if there was the connection there somehow. But as we continue to progress in this story, I get a call one day, and this was the call that really kind of worried us a little. And that was, so my sister is a gun owner. We were brought up around guns. We were raised and taught how to use them, and respect them. So it was natural. He, not so much. Didn't really care for him, but she's always carried. And she had a place that she would keep her gun so that, it was out of harm's way. She comes home one day and she couldn't find him. He had gotten home before she did. She couldn't find him. She said she looked everywhere and finally got up to their bedroom. She said she opened the closet door and he was sitting on the floor in the dark, and he was holding her gun, and said he felt very comfortable there. He was very comfortable there. She said that she would start praying and he would get sick. She said just trying to, retch. He just couldn't be around it. He would leave there and be completely fine, but the minute they got back, it would all start up again with him. I'm like, okay. So I immediately get online and I'm looking for churches in their area. Who can I call? I literally scanned and just stopped. Something told me to stop. It was an Episcopal church, not too far away from them. And I called, and I sounded exactly like, for as long as we've done this, exactly like some of the folks that contact us and say, well, you're probably not going to believe this, but, and that's exactly how I started.
You're going to think I'm crazy.
Yeah, you're going to think I'm crazy, but, this is going on. Well, he, the priest that I got to talk to, he's like, one of our members of the church has passed away, and we're trying to get the, this service planned that we're doing for them. And, then after that, like my family and I are supposed to take off and go on our vacation. And when I told him that last part about the gun and how he was, responding to prayer and things like that, he said, you know what? I'm going to get in touch with her and I'll go on over this afternoon. So he goes over and he blesses the house, blesses them. The one area that he forgot to go in and clear was the attic. So essentially what he did was he drove whatever was in there straight up. And so we went down to see my niece graduate. We had some things happen while we were there. And then after that, they decided we need to sell. We can't keep doing this. She said they were in there cleaning the house out, like getting the last of their stuff as they were moving. And she said this was the final day. She said they come in and she said there was like a little closet under the stairwell where they kept their brooms and things like that. And she's like, we're getting stuff out of there. And she said, all of a sudden we hear footsteps. And she said her husband made the joke, oh, sorry we woke you up, didn't mean to disturb you. She said, as they're standing there, you literally heard footsteps every step down those steps. She said the front door opened and slammed shut. And she said that's when they decided to pack the last few things and they didn't go back.
Basically, just pulled a car up and it said, screw you guys, I'm going home. And it just left.
Yes.
Wow. She told me that, and I'm like, you got to be kidding me. She's like, no. And then, the screen door shattered for no reason.
Yeah, while we were there for my niece's graduation, so she'd been wanting me to come and see what was going on. So while I'm there, of course, you could hear the footsteps upstairs. You could hear conversation going on upstairs when everyone was downstairs. You couldn't make out what they were saying, but you could hear mumbling back and forth like a conversation was happening. The cats would literally sit and watch something walk through the dining room and then back through the dining room into the hallway.
I'm out.
The drawers, the drawers on either side of the bed, they would be, we would have them shut. That's where my mom and I were staying, and they would literally be open and stacked. Like the bottom one would be the furthest open, and then the next, and then the next. And that happened every time we left. We were getting ready to head to Arkansas for the last few days that we were there. And my sister had gone on to work for part of the day. My brother-in-law is outside. He's weed eating. My sister has all these Tiffany lamps and things like that. And I'm in the kitchen doing the breakfast dishes. The kids are in the living room. No, the kids were upstairs. Mom was in the living room. All of a sudden, I hear this horrendous shatter of glass. I'm like, oh God, the cats have taken out one of the Tiffany lamps. This is terrible. So I go, hot-footing it through to the hallway, which is where the door was. They had this huge glass screen door.
And Simon, here in America, hot-footing means she ran.
Okay, I was wondering. I suspected that was the case. Swiftly.
Sorry. And when I got in there, there was literally a little hole in the glass, and there was glass like all in. No, it was all out on the sidewalk. My mom she comes in there. She's like, what in the world happened? The girls came down from upstairs. They're like, what's going on? I'm like, oh God, he's done thrown a rock through the glass. There wasn't any glass inside.
It came from the inside.
It came from the inside. And the only thing that I can come up with is there was so much activity from different people visiting and staying because of my nieces, getting ready to graduate. There was so much energy all at one time.
It had to go somewhere.
It had to go somewhere. And that's the only place it could go was out. So, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't have been there any longer. I'd have been hot-footing out the door, into the car, and never returning.
And hot-footing it out.
With a drink ready to go.
If I even considered that.
He just grabbed the bottle. He's like, I don't need to mix it with anything.
Yeah. I'd have been down there quicker than a ferret down a rabbit hole.
Can you give me 20 more minutes?
What's the time now?
It's like 8:10.
Yeah, close on.
20
Go on.
minutes.
Go on.
Okay, real quick. We're going to go ahead and end the episode right here real quick for all of you. I want to come back. I want to have a couple of Twitter questions from X that people want to ask you, and I want to ask you a couple of questions real quick. I want to go into Mothman. And beside that, we'll go that this gives our Patreon subscribers a little bit of extra content you can't get. So if you want to listen to the rest of this episode, we're going to do the After Hours show for 20 minutes or so with Simon. It'll be a little bit more raw. We might drop some F-bombs, whatever the case may be. We're going to talk into some more serious level stuff. We'll give you about 20 minutes or so on the Patreon side of things. So if you want to continue listening, go to patreon.com/GetOnTap. Listen to the last 20 or 30 minutes or so. And, hey, look, it's a good opportunity. We need to do this. Our subscribers, thank every one of you. There's about 50 y'all out there. Don, I think you subscribe to us, too. Yeah, there's about 50 y'all out there. Y'all give us your time, your effort, your energy. You're constantly interacting with us on Facebook and stuff. Y'all deserve a little bit extra. So we're going to end the episode right here. So for everybody else, please come support us. Patreon.com/GetOnTap. Don, Kelly, thank y'all so much.
Thank
we'll see y'all
you.
at the After Hours here in about 2 minutes.
I see what you did there, Billy.
If you're a subscriber, just keep listening. It's going to pick right back up. If you're not a subscriber, then go do it right now. Patreon.com.
Long as I can do my Simon Winch impression.
Real quick. Yeah, do that for the public.
Oh, no, I'll do that for the
Okay, we'll do it for the
after
after show. But for you all, you can find you at Facebook at Beyond the Dark Paranormal. Go in there and find them. They're going to come. If you have a legitimate investigation you want to do, find them. They're going to come do it for you. We highly recommend them. If you want us to come hang out with you when you do it, we'll sit out on the side. You can tell us stories too, and Simon will drink a little bit of rum with you. But check us out, patreon.com/GetOnTap for the last 20 minutes of this episode. Thank you.
Signal while changing lanes. They pulled him over, found her cocaine. She said, I love you. Yes, I love you forevermore. If you tell that cocaine load is yours. He spent time locked up. She ran around. Everyone knew it. Small country town. While he lay rotten, Lord, she was blowing on his door. And the day they released him, really had nowhere to go. she forgotten? Did she still care? He called up her mama, Lord, and these words he heard her cry. Lord, that no good daughter of mine spend all your money on cocaine, overdosed and died. Lord, it's ashes to ashes, and you know it's dust to dust. Just another low down woman that a man can't trust. In the spring, one sunny day, my good gal left me